Orient Beach District. Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Rivers,
Here.
Commissioner Way,
Here.
Commissioner Brown.
Here.
Commissioner Flowers. Here. Commissioner West, absent.
Next item is adoption and approval of the agenda. The only thing on the agenda today of any significance is the initial trim discussion. Were there any other agenda items that anyone wanted to add? Modifications?
You're talking about the agenda? Mm-hmm. Okay. There's supposed to be an item on the agenda about prayer, opening the meeting with prayer.
Is that right?
No, I discussed, I called you about that.
Right, but we didn't put it on the agenda this time. Do you want to have a discussion about that?
No, I want to make a motion that we do this. So I want it should be on the agenda.
Okay, so that needs to be on the agenda as a discussion item, though. So can we?
New business. B, I guess, A and B.
Let's wait until Jane gets back so that she has an opportunity to discuss that too. But we can put it on the next agenda, and we can all discuss it.
I called for this to be put on today's agenda.
Right, but I went and I said I will check with Matt.
Sorry, I did not understand.
We have to approve everything that goes on the agenda.
Because he's the chairman, and
That's
you
not-
always run everything by him.
That's not how the Roberts
That's-
rules
okay.
are. That's why we approve the agenda, and if he does, or three people don't want to talk about what's on the agenda, you don't approve it.
But
Then my mistake, I'll put it on the agenda. But if you want to discuss it now, it's as if it was on the agenda, so.
I just,
But that doesn't give the public 7 days notice is all if they wanted to.
Right, it's
say
not
that.
properly noticed, so we can put it on next month's agenda. I didn't understand that you wanted it on this month's agenda.
No, he did say, he sent me an email and said he wants the invocation, and I assumed you meant you want to do the invocation at the meeting, not to put it as an agenda item, but to go ahead and do the invocation.
well, since it's not something I tried to do when I was acting chairman, and I did, it's just something that I think that we ought to do. So I don't see why it's such a hot item. I mean, county commission, mosquito control, school board, all start with an invocation. And there's no reason why we can't.
But we haven't, and I mean, any of the time that I've been
The
here.
only time we ever
only
did
time we
it
have
was
in-
when he was acting chairman.
Right,
That
so
was
there's
it.
no tradition on this board of doing it. We certainly can, but it's something that I think we should all have an opportunity to discuss. So let's put it on the agenda for next
What's
month,
to discuss?
whether or not
Can't
we
be
want to.
against it.
I am.
Who's against prayer?
I am.
Some public people might want to.
Yeah, and
comment.
people of the public
They
might not want it to happen
multiple
either.
kinds of prayers of different religions or something, I don't know.
Religion, so.
I can't understand a word you're saying, Sandy.
Well, I'm sorry, there's an outbreak and I'm exposed to way too many elderly folks in my neighborhood, I cannot endanger them.
Can't hear
I
anything.
can speak louder though.
Let's put it on next month's agenda, and we can discuss it as a complete board. Otherwise, are there any other modifications to the agenda? Do I have a motion to approve as written?
I intend to speak.
Motion to approve.
Okay, is that a second then? Okay, okay, so that's all in favor, aye,
Aye.
and one against. Next item is public comment.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Michelle S. Pavlovsky. I live at 109 Kings Quarry Lane, St. Augustine Beach, Florida, 32080. Frankly, ladies and gentlemen, I am embarrassed for you. Why? Because the Pledge of Allegiance says, one nation under God. Why do you need to have a discussion about an invocation? I know of other government offices across the board that include the invocation. Why do you have to discuss it? We are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's what I will say. Now, you don't need to have a discussion. Do I need to have the commissioners of the county that include invocation before every meeting, together with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you do not do that, then you should not serve on the board. Thank you very much.
Okay, anybody else? Government representative comments.
Thank you, Michelle.
No, you go first. Want me to go first this time? Yours is more interesting.
I guess we should have, that's all supposed to have the time, but we didn't need it that time.
Steve Zukowski, Patrol Supervisor, Lieutenant with the Fish and Wildlife Commission for Coastal Flagler and St. Johns Counties. And apparently I'm the only one here today, so I might be able to elaborate on quite a few things have transpired since our last meeting. 1 second, please. Okay, start off with boating safety since the last meeting. 4th of July weekend was, because of the weather with the intermittent storms and the rain, it was mellow in terms of vessel traffic. It was more akin to a standard summer weekend. But with that said, on Sunday, when the rains finally stopped about 5:30 p.m., skies cleared and there was no wind, and we had a fairly good turnout for the fireworks on the water. We had many vessels up by Bird Island in the back cut, and also out there by the entrance, area by entrance to Salt Run, and also when the ICW turns back to the north. So fireworks got started a little bit late, I think at 9:30, but they went well. We had a good turnout, and for the most part, the people who were out in vessels were well behaved. It was probably the first time I was out there where there's been no wind and the no-seams are terrible, especially back there by Bird Island. We did have one incident of 2 people in kayaks got a little boisterous and they started setting off fireworks on the island right near the sign that says Bird Sanctuary, Shorebird Habitat. So we went over there and said hello to them. It was dark by then, so when they turned around, we showed them with this flashlight that they were standing probably 10 feet from a sign. They were very embarrassed and very apologetic, so that was handled, just a verbal warning. We don't think there were any issues because these were minor type fireworks, sparklers, and a few other things that went off, but didn't disturb anybody. So 4th of July weekend in and of itself, boating-wise, wasn't too noteworthy. Fisheries-wise it was, but I'll get to that when I get into the fisheries part of it. We have had, over the last month, several boating accidents, so at least job security is there in that way. And 2 of the more prominent ones was, I think I mentioned before last month, we had a boating accident involving a livery over on Cat's Paw Marina versus a 39-foot center console boat just south of 312 Bridge that ran into some of the personal watercraft from that livery, or ran into one of them. So Officer Dodd, and you met her, she was the female officer who was here with me, I think, last month. She did a very good job in that investigation, really drilled down into the NAVRUL violations, and that investigative was complete. PWC operator, I think, had 3 or 4 NAVRUL violations, and the 39-foot center console operator had 1 more in addition. So they were issued warnings and/or citations for that. But fortunately, the people who were on the PWC, they didn't suffer anything but minor injuries, and they were pretty much okay the next day on that. So that was one that was somewhat complex, and she did a good job handling it for a new officer. Another boating accident of note or mention was the weekend, not this past weekend, the weekend before, or the weekend after 4th of July. When was 4th of July? That was 2 weekends ago. I'm sorry, I'm losing count. It's getting to be Groundhog Day. We had a multiple vessel boating accident down in the ICW by just south of the 206 Bridge by a Green Street boat ramp in that area, where one vessel that was proceeding south wanted to pass another, and as a result, when he did that, he came over their wake, and he was too close, and they collided. And then what happened is when he collided the other vessel, this is the one who was furthest to the rear, and it's an overtaking situation there also. After he collided with the one vessel that was ahead of him, he promptly went over to a floating dock and banged into two docked vessels over by a floating dock. So that's a complex accident. Fortunately, investigator Megan Thomas was there, and two of the officers from my crew, Officer Lawrence, Josh Lawrence, and Kurt Harris, they were out also, and they did a great job and responded as a team and worked the accident and broke it down because it is complex. And one reason they worked as a team and broke it down was the operator who was operating the boat, who initiated all this mayhem, was actually impaired. So Officer Lawrence handled that part of it while Officer Thomas is handling the boating accident investigation. Officer Lawrence conducted field sobriety tests, and the gentleman acquired enough clues to confirm that he was impaired, and he was taken to the jail and booked into the county jail on that. Fortunately, most of the damage to that is minor fiberglass damage to the vessels. No one was injured. So basically, it's just going to be crushing fiberglass damage, and I don't know exactly how much it's going to be in terms of repairs. Officer Thomas hasn't completed her investigation yet, but I know nav rules are pending after speaking with her last week. She is no longer, she works under, her chain of command is another lieutenant, so I don't always get a chance to speak to her on a daily basis in terms of getting updates on that. So those are probably the most notable boating safety events since we last met last month. Fisheries and Marine Resources. July 4th weekend, again, was interesting because there wasn't a whole lot of boating activity, particularly on Saturday. So I actually got on board with Officer Bill Miller and Officer Steve Chamberlain, and we met up with Officer Dodd and Officer John Young, and they were in a boat. And we essentially checked some people coming back in from offshore Matanzas Inlet because, believe it or not, the sea state was fairly calm with the winds. I think we had west winds. So even though there weren't a lot of boaters out, there were a decent amount of fishermen out. Saw a few boats, didn't see any violations, saw some good catches of king mackerel. And so what we did after that was we headed down to Bing's Landing, and we haven't checked any boats there in a while in Flagler, and two boats came in. One was a charter boat with a party of 6 people, and another was just a recreational boat, both local people from Palm Coast or Flagler Beach area. The charter boat had been cited by then Officer Thomas a couple years ago for some king mackerel violations, and lo and behold, they had 7 undersized greater amberjack. They had king mackerel, they had some Almaco jack, and I think they had a lane snapper, which was fine, but all their greater amberjack were undersized. They claimed they thought they were banded rudderfish. The species can be similar, but there's a way to tell, and there's really an extra level of due diligence on the part of charter captains or commercial people because of the nature of the industry they're in. They have to have a higher level of knowledge and due diligence. So what Officer Miller, he was the lead officer in that one, what he did was he let the captain keep the fish and fillet out the fish for the paying party because it wasn't their fault, they knew. But that's not a simple citation where you pay it by mail. That's one where he's going to have to see the judge down there, and that's probably going to be a pretty steep penalty as a charter captain with second fishery violation with probably within a year, year and a half, I think it is. The king mackerel were good size though, which was nice. Then Officer Dodd and Young checked the boat. They had a couple king mackerel that were lawful. However, one gentleman had an expired fishing license, and I think there's a safety equipment violation. So I think a warning, Dodd issued a warning, Officer Dodd, for one of them, and issued a citation for the other on that. So that was 4th of July weekend. 2 weekends ago, we had the federal red snapper 3-day weekend open up. And I will say this year, so it was tough to get offshore. I actually tried to get offshore with officers Harris and Lawrence one day, and We made it out halfway to 9 Mile and the weather just got bad, so we came back in. But we checked people at the docks and at the marinas. And I will say the catches of red snapper this year were good. People were not keeping what I call any aquarium-sized red snapper because in federal waters, there's no size limit over here. So most of the red snapper were 24 inches plus. Most people seem to be abiding by the bag limit of 1, and the fish looked healthy also. And the amount of fish we saw looked very good also between several of the marinas and the boat ramps that all of us were inspecting that weekend. One issue we did have, though, was it's required in federal waters that with grouper and snapper, if you're going to release them, you need to ventilate them. That means their air bladders expand when they come up that quickly from the deep. And there's a tool where you basically just put it in their belly around their their anal fin area to let them decompress, so when you put them back in the water, they're not floating and they can get back down to the bottom quickly. We had several reports, 2 or 3 here in St. Augustine, or St. Johns County, and 1 in Flagler, where people would be going out to a fishing spot and they'd have 4 or 5 snapper floating on the surface because people did not ventilate them when they threw them back. Or the snapper might have been dead by that point too. So that's a federal requirement. There are a few requirements in terms of your gear when you're fishing for bottom fish, grouper snapper. One is the venting tool. Another one is you have to use circle hooks that are not stainless steel, a few things like that that we check on. That's because when you release a fish, to help with the fish's viability when you return it. So that one we missed out on. We didn't see any direct violations of that. It may have been people who maybe tried to vent the fish and didn't do it properly either. There's a video on how to do it. It's very simple. But that was one thing that we saw this year was a little bit of cause for alarm, which we didn't see in the past. And also that might have been attributed to people have one red snapper in a live well or their fish box, and they catch another one that's bigger, and they throw the smaller one back. That's called trading up. That's allowed in certain fish tournaments, and actually many freshwater bass tournaments, and even some redfish tournaments, but that's not allowed for normal fishing out here, but people still do it, and that might have counted for some of it too. They got a big fish right before they went in, and they threw the smaller one back, and the smaller one was maybe dead by that time. So, let's see. We also, Officers Miller and Chamberlain also did a good job on a mini investigation from a couple weeks ago. There were 2 Hastings gentlemen that had posted on either Facebook or I can't remember what of the social media outlets, and I saw it too. They were fishing down there by Fort Matanzas on their coastal waterway, and they held up a small green turtle. Ooh. And they were passing it around between each of them. You look at us, you know. So apparently Officer Miller and Officer Chamberlain did some good detective work, and that's normally something we turn over to investigator too, but these guys wanted to handle it, and I said, go forth, do well. And they did. They caught up with the people the other day, and both of them admitted to picking up the turtle. Now, for those who don't know, marine turtles were protected under Endangered Species Act, or the from 1972, which means you can't pick them. I mean, if you pick one up to move it somewhere, because let's say it got trapped in a little slough of water, and that's not what we're talking about. We're picking up and parading around with it like it's a souvenir, and that's considered harassment because you're basically altering the natural behavior of the animal, or you're causing stress to it. Same thing with marine mammals, shorebirds, things like that. So they admitted to it. They admitted they did wrong, and so I think charges are pending on that. We're going to talk to the state attorney about it, and it may just be warnings, it may be citations, we'll see. But they were using the sea turtle as I don't know, I don't want to say prop, but just having some fun with it when they shouldn't have. And lastly, flounder giggers have been out. They've been doing well. And what's pleasing is, as you may or may not know, if you're not a fisher, an angler, fisher person, an angler, FWC changed the state size and bag limits on flounder a few months back. It used to be minimum of 12 inches total length, 10 per person per day. Now it's minimum of 14 inches total length, 5 per person per day, which, to tell you the truth, is more consistent with flounder bag limits up and down the Atlantic coast, eastern seaboard anyway. And we haven't had any violations yet. People are adhering to that. So that's a good sign. Or we just haven't caught anyone yet, one of the two. So we'll see. And that's all I have. Are there any questions, comments, concerns?
I've got a question, not related to that. I know that in April, they started the new law that you had to have a kill switch, I think, on a boat 26 and under.
I'm not aware of that. Now, yeah, I might have to look that up for you.
West Marine just told me the same thing the other day.
Yeah, I got it noted.
It can be, I didn't get back to work till what, June 10th? So that, yeah, it's the nice thing about being out on medical leave, you come back to work and then your officers will tell you something, you're like, when did that happen? So that could be true.
Yeah,
I'll have to
April
look into
1st, they
it.
said,
Okay.
I read it in a notice to mariners or whatever.
A lanyard?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to look at that. We might have gotten a boating safety bulletin about that. That might have been one of the emails I haven't gotten to yet, way back then. But it makes sense. I know I always wear whether I'm operating with an officer in a boat or not, I always wear my kill switch. I'm just used to it from when I had my own boat, and wearing it around my wrist. And I can see that. It's a safety precaution, and so, but I'll have to check into that. Is that the only question you had?
Yeah, I just was curious.
Okay. Anybody else? Questions, comments, concerns?
Just a red snapper, they still have a season where they can't catch them, or is it wide open now?
No, the federal government, South Atlantic Fisheries Management Council, which is headquartered in Charleston, all right, and they have the eastern seaboard Atlantic coast from Virginia, North Carolina line down to Keys, and then Gulf picks up out of New Orleans. But a few years back, probably around 2008, somewhere in there, they decided to impose a moratorium on red snapper harvests in South Atlantic because commercial catches were very high. And also they were concerned about some of the charter vessel recreational catches. So they, meaning the Fishery Management Council, which are all appointees, federal appointees, they basically imposed a ban on the South Atlantic states. So in federal waters. So on the Atlantic coast here, which only goes out to 3 miles before federal waters take over, it's very difficult to get a legal size red snapper on the Atlantic coast because one, the size limit is 20 inches. Gulf, it's only 16. 20 inches is a good size fish. And two, you're not usually going to get reefs or wrecks or any habitat that's going to support a 20-inch fish like that with regularity. There are some people who tell me they can get lawful size red snapper but in state waters. So it's not closed in state waters, only in federal waters.
Only 3 miles out and more, okay.
On this side, on the Gulf side, state waters has seasons for red snapper. The state waters on the Gulf side go out to 9 miles. So particularly up in the Panhandle, and the size limit is it's 2 fish per day, but only 16 inches over there. So there's been more red snapper recreational fishing going on a regular basis on the Gulf Coast. But on this coast, for the last 13, 14 years, wherever it's been, we have to wait, meaning fishermen or anglers, have to wait until the federal government, which probably for the last 4 or 5 years, has said, okay, we're going to have our 3-day snapper weekend. And they'll have at least one a year, sometimes 2 or 3. And so you go out beyond 3 miles. With federal size limits, there are no size limits, and it's only 1 fish per day.
And that's what you've been talking about, but they've made a good recovery and they look good, you say?
We have done an exemplary job, because I speak with our biologists quite a bit about this, and we have also chartered several of the charter boats around here to go out and take our biologists out and conduct surveys on red snapper. State of Florida has done a very good job increasing the stock numbers of red snapper off its shores. Part of that is because also we have heavy tourism down here year-round, which is an incentive, and some of it is we just have good management here in Florida for marine resources compared to some other states. I don't want to besmirch the two states to the north of us, but I've worked up there with those people. When I left the state for a while, I worked for NOAA, National Marine Fisheries, and I can tell you, Florida really does a better job. So the stocks have rebounded, and what was promising this year, at least to me, because I only got one more summer left, was the red snapper were good size this year, and people were not keeping 12 inchers or 13 inchers, which we had a couple of years ago. They didn't have it last summer because of COVID. So, all right, did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Nathan Otter, St. Johns County Parks and Recreation. Just one quick update for you guys, project management wise. The Volano Basin dredge, they started mobilizing today for that. So the whole west side area there where the bulkhead is at, that will be, I'm really sorry, I have something in my throat, sorry. The whole west side there will have silt fence put up this afternoon. They'll start bringing in their materials. The barge is currently on its way. The contractual service is planning on working Monday to Fridays only. There will be no closures, anything like that. They'll be working around the boats. So just kind of dates of interest for you all. They have a substantial completion date of October 22nd with a final completion date of November 6th. Our pre-construction meeting yesterday, they feel that they will be way ahead of that schedule, but that is their standard 90-day for signing a contract with us. They're estimating roughly about 5,700 cubic yards of material that will be pulled out of there. Have any other questions? That's kind of the only update I have for you today. That'll be a great project. Again, thank you guys for your support on this one. Much needed project. The community's going to be very happy about this one.
Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. I just have a handout. I'll give you right quick.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Hello, Commissioners. I'm Carl Blow with the Florida Inland Navigation District, and I just wanted to stop by to give you an update on the Fines Waterway Assistance Program grant program, which you guys have been kind enough to partner with the City of St. Augustine and with St. Johns County. We had our two-day meeting last month where the fine commissioners, there's 12 of us, basically hear presentations from the applicants for their grants. What happens after that is each fine commissioner scores each individual application. And then fine staff takes those scores, averages them up, and comes out with a final scoring for the grants. This year we had 45 grant applications. I think the total request was around I think it was $38 million. Just about all our grants are a 50% match. Our situation is that we're now developing our budget for 2021-22, and our preliminary budget, we've budgeted $15 million for this program. So what we have here are 45 grant applications that have scored, and as you can see, I've tried to highlight them. Both the city and the county did pretty well. I think obviously you guys are partnering with the city for salt run dredging. I think last year they scored #1. This year they scored #2 out of 45. And then reading on down the list, you can see a project that scored 17 out of 45 is a Palm Valley West Boat Ramp Phase 2, which is not in your district. It's an expensive project and a really, really needed project up there in the northern part of the county. Below that, you have a project I believe you are partners in with the county, Doug Crane, right over here in St. Augustine South. That scored 19 out of 45. And then the last project that came from St. Johns County, St. Augustine area was Palm Valley East, which is here again up in Palm Valley, which is outside your district. And that project really has to do with improving the parking on the east side of the waterway there under the bridge. The other project is a brand new boat ramp on the west side under the bridge. But anyway, so that's where we stand. Now, what happens next is we have 2 more budget hearings, just like you guys have budget hearings that are required by statute. And the final budget is adopted in the second hearing. And so that's when we know for sure what's going to get funded. I'm 99.9% sure that Salt Run will get funded. Now the other projects, if you look at this list, hopefully you can tell from the copies, some of them are in bold print. And what that means is those projects do not have all their permits yet. And the way the world works and find is on what we call Phase 2 projects, which are where the project, the grant is for actual construction. You have to have all your permits by September 20th in order to be funded. So, for instance, I'll just pick one, the first one here, St. Lucie County, Fort Pierce Inland Sand Trap Construction Part 1 scored really high, but they don't have all their permits yet. So if September 20th comes and they don't have all their permits, then they just drop off the list. So it's a little tricky to say exactly what all is going to get funded until that day, because, you know, I can tell you right now, some of these folks won't have their permit. But I feel really good that the Salt Run will be funded. I really hope Palm Valley West, the new boat ramp, gets funded. I think, I don't know, anything new on Doug Crane?
We have all the permits.
You got all your permits? Okay, all right, so they're going to get, I'm pretty optimistic they're going to get funded.
The Palm Valley, is that what you're talking about?
Last review.
At the Corps?
For Doug Crane.
Oh, that's right.
Last review at the Corps for Doug Crane. All right.
To the whole neighborhood for their last final reviews and then before the court starts.
Okay, well, I hope they have all their permits. And obviously the last one, the parking lot on the east side of Palm Valley doesn't need any permits. So that is the situation this year. It's not too soon to start thinking about next year if you want to partner with the county or the city on fine grants. It takes time to decide what you want to do and then get your interlocals done and all that. And so
Is September the 20th your deadline for all fine grants?
that's the deadline for all these applicants to
Permits,
have
I'm
their
sorry.
permits.
How about the fine grants? What's your deadline for next?
Well, now, this next program for the next fiscal year, which would be 22, 23, will be, that deadline is usually March the 31st.
And one other question, on these Palm Valley West and East, if those do get funded, that would be tremendous to us, even though they're not in our district, because they could relieve some of the pressure that the city has on our local boat ramps. Can you tell me, and I
Mr.
know they're
Flowers,
not,
nobody wants
I'm sure.
those two funded more than me.
Do you know offhand, for those two, east and west, I assume one, they're right across from each other pretty much?
Right, they're under the bridge.
Do you know offhand, which is great for No Way, do you know offhand about how many parking places each one will have? Just
Well,
roughly?
a lot.
lot.
Because the reason I'm so excited about, especially the west one, is, if y'all have been up there, that's a high bridge and the waterway's narrow. There's a lot of parking under those, both of those sides of the
So
bridge.
both sides will have a lot of parking.
Lot of
That's
parking.
going to be, boy, I hope that happens.
Well, we hope to get the one on the west side in. The east side, actually, and I'll defer to the county on that, but they have some future plans of improving that ramp on the east side. The challenge on the east side is the ramp's really close to the channel, and the existing ramp that's there is pretty steep and pretty narrow.
Yeah.
They're working on some plans to improve that ramp. The ramp on the west side we're trying to get in is a nice ramp. It's wide, and there's actually a little creek on the north side of the bridge on the west side. So that ramp is not as close to the channel because of that mount. It's kind of, pulled back a little bit. But yeah, I mean, that the northern part of the county, it's phenomenal to grow, and it's, desperately needed. So, and that kind of leads into the other thing I just wanted to let you know about. Fine's job with the Corps is to maintain the intercoastal waterway. That's our primary responsibility. And that said, we have a project starting probably next month to do maintenance dredging in the intercoastal channel from the Palm Valley Bridge up to the Duval-St. Johns County line. And that project is looking like about 650,000 cubic yards. And that material goes into one of our facilities. It's called DU9, but it's a dredge material facility that's on the DDOT Ranch, which is the big Davis track, up there on the north end of Palm Valley. We have another facility that's there next to Davis Park. You might have, if you've ever been in Davis Park, you see it's just to the west.
Is that where they'll be taking the spoil from the boat landing?
Yeah, well, see, in an area like Palm Valley, that material that we dredge is obviously, it's not beach quality, so you wouldn't put it on the beach. So we have to put it in our dredge material management facilities, which are just giant bowls with earthen berms around them, and you pump it in there, and basically the water runs out and it's returned back to the intercoastal.
But is that where they're taking the spoil from the Volano Bridge dredge as well, to the big vats?
The Volano boat ramp?
Right, the boat ramp spoil.
Well, I haven't spoken to the county particularly. Did y'all go to contract with Branch Diversified on that?
No, so they did not win this one. This is Antha. It's
Okay.
a company out of Pompano, but there's a mitigation site up in Jacksonville, so it gets trucks to Jacksonville. Again, as Carl's saying, the stuff has to dry out. There's a process that needs to happen for that material. So this gets trucked to Jacksonville.
See, and what happens, and not to take too much time, but the cost fluctuates tremendously based on the quantity and where you can take it. And a project like they're doing at the Volano ramp, they got to dry it out somewhere before you can truck it.
I was just wondering where they were going with it.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, well, I'm not familiar. There was another contractor that has a facility on the river up in Jacksonville who actually the city's project in Salt Run, that's where that material went. It was, they put it in barges and barged it up the intercoastal. I guess these guys are trucking, right? Yeah, so. But anyway, I guess that's all I've got, unless you have any questions.
Hey, thanks,
Okay,
Carl.
remember, it's not too soon to start thinking about next grant cycle. Oh, one other thing I forgot. I know you guys are very, you're a critical part of the derelict boat program here, and the derelict boat situation is really bad in Florida and up and down the East Coast, our current program is we allocate $50,000 a year to each of our 12 counties for derelict boat removal. And basically, primarily, some of my fellow commissioners from Miami-Dade and Broward and Brevard, they've got such a big problem down there, they're wanting to increase that $50,000 per county So it wouldn't surprise me if we don't bump our number to 75, which means, that would be $75,000 available for derelict boat removal within St. Johns County. So the only, there is that local match of, I think it's 25%, but just thought I'd pass that on. All right, thanks.
Good to know. Thank you. Any other? Oh,
Yeah, unless someone else has to go. Steve Zukowski again, Fish and Wildlife Commission. All right, Commissioner Way, here's the deal on that. That's why I haven't seen anything about it. That's federal law only. So for the engine cutoff switch, it's no longer called a kill switch, it's an engine cutoff switch. Federal law, April 1st, vessels less than 26 feet in length that are producing more, that have a engine of 3 or more horsepower. They have to have it. If your vessel is built, what they say, January of 2020 or later, it's mandatory to have it. Most vessels have one anyway, but if you have it, you have to have it on. Coast Guard enforces it only in federal navigable waters, which means 3 miles out. So I think I read there was something like 7 states have it for their statewide, but only 44 states have it. We have it for personal watercraft. So if that's the case, although I didn't see it here in anything I researched, it's a code of federal regulations, and there is no state statute on it, which means we're not going to enforce it. If we come across it out there beyond 3 miles, since that does, as of right now, that doesn't fall in our ability. We can enforce federal safety laws in terms of carriage requirements for safety equipment, such as life jackets, fire extinguishers, flares, and that hasn't shown up yet. So maybe when the statutes, I think it's is it even or odd year, every even year gets rewritten, that might be included. But right now, it's only for federal navigable waters. So 3 miles or more on this side, 9 miles on the other side.
So you're not calling the intercoastal waterway federal navigable waterway?
No, that's navigable waters. Now, the Coast Guard can go anywhere.
The federal government calls it federal navigable.
they call it waters of the United States.
They call it navigable waters. So the way the Coast Guard can go anywhere where there are navigable waters, which means there's an ebb and flow of tide.
So most of those would come from the Coast Guard then?
So Coast Guard can enforce stuff inside here. I'm retired from the Coast Guard Reserve, and I was a boarding officer. So Coast Guard tends to stay away from anything except some of the most basic safety equipment violations when they're in state waters, which is life jackets, fire extinguishers, things like that. They come across boating under influence, they turn it over to us like you wouldn't believe. One of the reasons why is because it's not criminal, it's only a big civil penalty or fine, and they don't want to get involved in that. But the way it works is Coast Guard can enforce anything anywhere on navigable waters of the United States. That's correct. So that's state waters, and that's federal waters out there. But this, according to what my research shows, just federal waters right now. So, all right, thanks.
Thank you. Great. I believe that's all government representatives, which brings us to the Secretary Treasurer's report.
Okay, as of, let's see, the city police law enforcement overtime, we committed 8,000. So far, we've spent 1,154. St. John's Sheriff's Department overtime of the 25,000, we've spent 8,001, 8131. Derelict boats, the 25,000 that was committed, we've spent 10,965. Basically, that's pretty much it for that. And then in the State Board of Administration Fund Day, we have 23,159. In the operating account, we have 279,051. In the money market account, we have 985, 926, and our reserve is 1,005,000. So our total available funds right now are 2,788,000. As of the taxes budgeted for this fiscal year that ends in September, we budgeted $583,400. We received $584,621, and that was because we received some of prior year's taxes. And that was it. There should be nothing under balance of tax expected. And that's it.
I have just a question. For things like when we approved the Diamondback boat and the fireboat nav equipment and stuff like that, that's coming out of our general revenue. Could we not take that out of the unspecified marine projects, which has 280,000 in it?
Well, we really didn't. It came out of, it's in district projects. That's where it comes from, basically. Like the St. John, the Diamondback boat, the 34,000.
Right.
That was an uncommitted amount, so that came out of our regular general fund. All of that came out of our regular, it was not committed. We committed it after we bought it, is basically what happened. But we didn't budget for it. So basically, when we paid for it, it did not come out of the money market, it did not come out of reserves, it came out of the general fund. That's where it came from.
I understand that that's where it came from. I was just wondering why we weren't dipping into the unspecified marine projects
Oh,
to
if you
take it
want-
out of that as opposed to
Oh, I
the-
see what you're
And then the
saying.
reason, just so you know, that I'm asking is, I know that over 150, we put down 1.5 million for savings, and the money in excess of that, we were going to try to work with the county for boat ramp. And they're studying that now. So that's the only reason I was asking, because our general fund is go down really fast as we approve these little things.
Yeah, I know.
And that
yes.
maybe
And
we could-
as long as we're budgeting that, yes, we could, it's still the money in the general fund, though.
Right,
The
right.
unspecified amounts that you committed is still money in the general fund.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's, all in one.
I understand
except for
that. I was
the-
just trying to preserve what we had set aside
Yeah.
for boat ramming. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm good.
And then the next meeting, even though it's not trim, but I will have a worksheet that I will forward to all of you on projects. And you can take your homework and figure out which projects and if there's anything that you have, because I don't know what's going to come up. I don't have a magic 8-ball on that one. So then, and then whenever you're ready, then we'll talk about the trim.
Great, yeah, which we'll get to in just a second. Any other questions or comments on the treasurer's report? No. Next is approval of minutes for the June 15th, 2021 meeting. We have a motion to approve.
I'll motion to approve.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? None? Great. Engineering report, there's no outstanding engineering business, and we also do not have a representative from Taylor here today. There's also no old business, so that brings us to new business, which is the initial discussion of the millage rate. Elise, do you want to go ahead and walk us through the two scenarios?
Yep, okay, so you have two, I emailed them to you, and I also put copies on your, in front of you, of the two scenarios, which is the rollback rate and last year's rate, and how much they each give. And the rollback rate is a 4.18% increase in tax revenue. So you would be getting last year's rate, rollback rate. Last year's rate actually is not an increase in any, I'm sorry, the rollback rate increased. Last year's rate is a 4.18% increase. So basically what happens is on the last year's rate, you're going to bring in what was computed was $621,283 in revenue, in tax revenue. If you use the rollback rate, you'll bring in $596,348. So that's really $25,000 difference, basically, between the rollback and last year's. And then basically that's it, because everything else, the regular expenditures, it leaves, the last year's rate will leave $472,000 in district projects, where you could use that. And then in the rollback rate, you'll have $438,000 in district projects.
So the rollback rate is a 0% increase. Pay no attention to what that shows on the bottom.
Elise, last year, we did the rollback rate, didn't we?
We did.
Yes, that's right.
Yes. The rollback rate is no
No tax increase.
tax increase. It's only 4%. It's minute compared to the last year's rate. Like I said, it's 25,000, somewhere around there. So those are the two rates, and like I said before, and we've always discussed this, you can go high, but you can't go low once you've chosen. But, because if you say you want to go with a lower rate, you cannot, and no matter what meeting, we cannot go higher. But if you go with the higher rate, which would be the last year's rate, then.
We could then roll it back in any subsequent year,
And then
right?
the next meeting, you could say, well, we don't want to do that, we want to go lower.
Are we
So
voting on this today?
You have to vote on a proposed millage rate today.
I'd like to propose we do the rollback again because we have $1.5 million in the bank. And that's just in savings plus, or is it 219,000? Is that correct? Excuse me, that was total spent. What's our total that we have available? 2,788,000?
That's right.
That's
Okay,
right,
so
but I don't know, and another thing you all have to consider is whatever projects you plan on, help fund, because
Right.
that's basically what you do. So,
Right, I realize, and because we, like you said, we have no projects. So I would just, personally, I would recommend the rollback rate with no tax increase.
Yeah, Sandy, I think I mostly agree with you. I am a little concerned about tying our hands in the future by going with the rollback rate, though. And it is it's hard to know what the right thing to do here because it's such a minuscule shift overall, one way or the other. I think overall, though, I would honestly prefer to just stick with last year's rate, since we did roll back last year anyway.
Chairman, I move that we go with a rollback rate of .0574.
Okay,
I'll second that motion.
that's a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No? Okay, we're at
there's a tie.
we're at a deadlock here.
We have to do one today?
Just as another option, if y'all are interested, these are relatively small differences, but technically you don't have to pick rollback or last year rate. You can pick something in between if you desire, if that might help break the tie.
I don't have those figures.
I know we don't have the figures, but that is an option.
I mean, basically, you have to pick one or the other, and then when we go to the next meeting, so if you go with the higher rate, you could drop it down, because that is the higher rate.
You could do
And you
that.
could drop it down at the next meeting.
At least you're only allowed to tie break if there's a lack of a quorum,
Yes,
right?
I
Okay.
I talked to Tallahassee because this happened last year. And Tallahassee said, if I don't have a quorum or if I have a tie, can we call the person or the people who are not here? They said, no. They said, because this is just a preliminary and it's not cast in stone yet, then I could sit there and say, well, okay, this is what I think, and then
Well,
go with it.
why don't we just go with, because we can roll it back, we go to the higher rate, and then when.
And then the next
Payne West
meeting-
gets back here,
And then when Jane's here, and then you could go and lower it.
Right, so there's a procedural difference between what we pick even at this meeting though, right? If we decide to go for the rollback rate, that requires less notice before the next meeting or something like that. Am I misremembering that? Okay, never mind.
No. Basically, what happens is, because if you go with the rollback rate, then there's a different kind of ad that I have to post in the paper.
That's what I'm remembering.
And so there's an ad when there's like that 4% increase if you do it that way, but that doesn't go in the paper. That's not going to be in there until you finally.
After the next
Yeah.
meeting.
Could we get another vote at this, even if we went roll back today?
Yes.
Or we don't roll back, we still get a second chance to vote,
But if you go with the rollback, you can't change it.
even at the second meeting? Okay.
Yeah, so that meeting is going to be in September. So that meeting is September 14th, and I'm doing our regular meeting on the same day. So this way, we don't have to come back anytime again, because it's 5:05. You have to do the meetings at 5:05. So we'll do, the first hearing will be, and that doesn't go in the paper, that goes on your trim notices.
Okay.
So that will be on your trim notice when those come out. So that's why I have to get this now, because August 1st, they want this information by August 1st.
Why don't I make a motion, we do the last year's rate, and then when we take it up the next meeting, we have 5 people here, we can
You can even do it at the September meeting, because that's really when you're going to have to do it.
Yeah, I second that. That sounds sensible. So that's a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Great.
Cannot vote for a tax increase, but you guys have the quorum with them, right? Okay.
Okay. That concludes new business. We have one more public comment period. Nothing. Comments by commissioners? Tom?
Yeah, I can't discuss this with you out of this meeting, but why are you against a prayer at the beginning of the meeting?
I am against a prayer for a number of reasons. One, I am not religious. I personally feel that religion and government do not.
The United States Congress, the House of Representatives, the Senate, the Florida Legislature, Florida Senate, they all begin with a prayer.
Sure, and I could name dozens, maybe hundreds of government bodies
when
that
you
don't.
say prayer, it doesn't have to be Christian. Another thing, when you say prayer, it could be a meditation, a poem you could read, or something like that. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't specify what kind of invocation it is.
Well, honestly, Tom, I would be much more open to that if you are willing to be
Well,
flexible about that. Sure, okay.
That's my interpretation, because I know that even in the United States Senate, they occasionally have a Muslim prayer or a Buddhist person come in. So I'm not limited to Christianity, no. Just an invocation to God, that we would like his help in this meeting to guide us in our deliberations, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Could I say something about that since it was brought up? Just because we can't discuss this together, it's just that our charter is not like the county where the chairman can make a lot of decisions before things, or if they even get to the agenda. Our charter doesn't give the chairman that authority to make the personal decision whether it's just that we have to vote on it. Doesn't mean we won't do it. It just means we have to vote on it, that's all.
Okay, the other question I have is to Elise. We used to have, like, on the agenda, when somebody wanted something on the agenda, you put the agenda item down, then you put your name out there, like by whoever.
Yeah, still,
And
so
so
if
that
somebody
was-
has an item, I usually, like if Sandy has an item, I'll put Commissioner
Right.
Flowers or Matt.
Yeah, we still do that.
So that's what I thought you would do for this meeting, so.
Okay, so here's where the confusion came in, Tom, because you sent me an email about the invocation. I sent you an email back and I said I was gonna run it by Matt first, whether what was wrong of me or not, it doesn't matter. And you came back and emailed me and said, okay, thanks, or whatever it was, okay. That was it. So that's it. So that was the end.
But we'll have it on next
So
month's
you'll put
meeting.
it on-
Well,
right.
we'll put it on the agenda next
Yeah.
month, so I'm taken care of. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Great. Chris?
I talked to Yelton today. He's still finishing up the project in Salt Run. The sign got in today. I'm going to pick it up tomorrow and get it to Yelton Construction. So when they do go put the piling at that submerged rock location, and then they will also go and fix the pile at Salt Run on the curve.
Is there another half of the invoice to
I haven't
that?
got it yet. I'll pick it up when I pick up the
Are they
sign.
fixing the pile in the, which pile are they fixing? The one that holds the sign? Is that
Yeah,
the one
it's
for-
gone.
okay.
The
Yeah,
pile's
that's what I
gone.
thought you
They're
meant.
gonna replace that, and then
Yeah.
they're gonna replace the one that's, I think, bent real bad or whatever, that's right on the bend by the conch house.
Okay.
Great. Sandy?
No.
Reuben Franklin from the city of St. Augustine is supposed to get back to me about the possible permitting issues for putting gravel out at the kayak launch. He has not gotten back, but he will soon. The other thing I wanted to ask, Elise, it's been a year and a half at least since the city of St. Augustine Beach came to us and asked us for money for a couple of projects. They were asking for improvements on A Street, I want to say the 5th Street
Beach walk
beach access
over.
ramp, and then the
Beach walk.
park up there, Ocean Hammock Park. Have they ever come back? Okay, that's weird. All right.
We never give them money. It'd be nice to do something nice for,
Well, yeah, my recollection is that we were enthusiastic about the 5th Street we were willing to give them money, they just never came back and asked for it.
Yeah,
That's-
no,
That's bizarre. All right, well, that's just what I wanted to know, I just thought of that today. Well, there being no other business, the next meeting is going to be August the 17th, have I got that right? August the 17th. This meeting is adjourned.